part of the union, you know, and you were listening to discussions on pay raises. So obviously when there was a pay raise offered and accepted, we had to go through, you know, what the grade was and what they were entitled to. And I used to think, you know, there's men here sitting in their ass all day. And my women are cleaning theatres, cleaning kitchens. We had to scrub with big machines. And now they're sitting there seeing how much back pay they were getting. We were getting pennies. I mean, literally getting pennies. They weren't that much better paid than us, but it was so unfair.
It just was clear to us, it was quite simple, that women doing a certain job were being treated differently from men doing a job of the same sort of standing value and usefulness to society. And the reason the women were being paid less is because they were women.
It was only when we started to raise awareness that they thought, you know, look, if I'm cleaning this, there's going to be a newborn baby, maybe having breathing problems, put into it. And no disrespect to the men, but I mean, they were outside and their job was important too. But I mean, they were brushing, you know, the roads and prettying up the place like for visitors and whatever. But there were the women doing really, really important jobs. Everybody's job was important, but I didn't see why women shouldn't be paid, you know, equal pay for work of equal value. And that was one of the biggest stumbling blocks at the beginning. Having to make men understand that we weren't trying to put their jobs down or belittle their jobs, but we just needed people to understand, you know, equality.
The difficulty with the law at that stage was, unless women domestics, for example, could find a man who was doing the same work as them and earning a higher rate of pay, then they couldn't sue for it. And they couldn't find a man in that position. So we anticipated the Equal Value Amendment. We agitated for it, and it became law in GB a year before it became law in Northern Ireland. That was 1984. We had already planned the cases before the law changed. We'd already been in discussions with the Equal Opportunities Commission here, and we were waiting for the date.
Our biggest problem was that we don't have collective cases, we don't have class actions. So you have to ask an individual to come forward to be a test case.
People were nervous about it at the beginning, like, in case they lost their job.
That's just how I felt at the beginning. I was just afraid. So Rosalind talked it over with me, and you're sort of saying, like, what happens if management comes down on you, and you're sort of putting your notice after a week, and that just was the whole point of it. You were afraid of losing your job. You were afraid of going in too deep. You were afraid of court. Because you never were used to all these things. But then at the end of the day, I suppose somebody had to make a stand, and that's just what happened.
There were supervisors who would have said, you know, the Royal can't afford, the Royal really couldn't afford this. Like, me, why would you be paid more than me? I'm a supervisor. And I said to her, but look, I'm not trying to earn more money than you know. And you had to sit them down and explain to them. It took an awful long while to get it through. I mean, why should cleaners, earn any more money? And I said, for God's sake, sit down and think the whole thing through. We're talking about equality here. And if it starts at the bottom of the heap, it's bound to have an upward effect.
Everything that you could name was against them. The system was against them, the management was against them, and even their colleagues was against them. They may not have said it to their faces, but it was being said behind their backs. The males were their nose was put out of joint. Who does these women think they are? Fighting for more pay. We're the people who do the work, and women can't work as well as we can. So you had this whole mixed bag of stuff. So there was a big learning curve. And I have to say, there was hundreds and hundreds of meetings trying to make people understand. All this was saying, here's women doing the same job as men, but getting paid less. We didn't allow politics to come into anything that we ever done. But back secretly and behind backs, you had people with mistrust. Are we being leading down a path here that we don't really want to go? What is this about? Is this just another stunt by republicanism or whatever the case may be? And you had all those thoughts going on. And where you would maybe hold a meeting on a Monday or Tuesday night, and you signed all those women up to say, yes, we're going forward with it. By Thursday, you had 2/3 of those people coming back and saying, I've talked to my husband, now I'm not going to bother.
The case itself was the first test in the Northern Ireland courts of a new law. And I don't think if we'd known at the beginning what a legal obstacle race it was to become, we would have embraced it quite as readily as we did.
None of us had ever sat in a court, you know, and so would go in and we'd look and make sure we'd sit beside each other, and if anybody asks any questions, who was to answer the question? You know, it was, we got a wee bit blasé about it too, you know, would have been sitting giving, you know, comments and who does he think he is, and you got to know the figures on the other side, the faces, and you would nod hello. But we weren't actually suing them. We were suing the Eastern Health Service. We're suing everybody at the end of the day, like, but not an individual. We weren't suing any individuals. So it was. Did you find it difficult, especially getting into court?
I went into court. The looks we used to get from management. You think they were staring at you and studying you, and right, I'll get you, you know. But they frightened you at first, but once, as I say, all the years, you got used to looking at those faces.
Just scowled back.
And you just said, you've done that before, so...
But you see, nobody understood really what was happening. It was a whole new world for them too. Trying to get through, you know, the idea of equality, you know, on all levels. But Sally, remember the first time we went to court, you were sick. She was physically.
Oh, I was.
Sally, you weren't you?
I was indeed.
She was sick every morning before she left the house.
You just worked yourself up so much about going, you know, and as Mary said, like, you know, management just thought, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be here, and you felt that when they passed it, they were sort of, but then as time went on, I think they got used to us going to court, we got used to going to court, and I think we all thought there was never going to be an end to it, so it's sort of it was like yesterday's news for a while, you know.
It was the thing that frustrated us most was the amount of time that everybody had to spend in court, and how much the job they did was dissected in a bad way as opposed to a good way.
Very humiliating, my Patricia.
All of the attempts to demean the very valuable work that the women were doing.
They said that the women cleaned their own homes, so coming in to clean the hospital was no problem, you know, because that's what we've done all the time. Well, the offer would have been good for me, but the point is, it wasn't just done for me, it was done for, took the case for everybody. So, in that sense, we didn't want paid off.
And I was very proud of the rest of the women, because you didn't even have to ask them. I just looked round and everybody said no. That was it. Unanimous decision, no. That wasn't the idea behind it. It wasn't just to get money for 5 women, it was to get for everybody. It was to get justice for everybody.